So on Wednesday, Netflix hit us with a double whammy. First, the confirmation that Bridgerton has been renewed for seasons 5 and 6 as well, which I don't know about you, but I could certainly hear the angels singing. All I need is for them to just take it one step further and confirm that we are getting season 7 and 8 as well, so I can feel at peace that Hyacinth will get her day in the sun. However, in addition to the renewal news that had us fans cheering so loud that I'm sure all corners of the internet felt it, Netflix took things a step further and dropped a 68-second clip of Benedict Bridgerton spotting Sophie Beckett, now Bake, in the show across the ballroom, alongside them rubbing it in that we won't be getting the season until 2026. Which, Netflix, you annoying buggers, you already told us that before, remember? We did not forget that it's taken your asses 2 long years to give us a new season. Stop rubbing it in. But anyway, after watching that tiny clip way more times than I should have, I realized that in just 1 minute, Bridgerton showed us something that has changed quite visibly and significantly in Benedict and Sophie's story from the book that is going to be pretty instrumental and core to the more visible change and direction that the show will be taking with our second favorite Bridgerton come season 4. What exactly is that change, you wonder? Well then, keep watching. Now, in the book, An Offer from a Gentleman by Julia Quinn, which is the book that focuses on Benedict and Sophie's story, things play out in the typical Cinderella fashion. After all, the book is quite clearly influenced and inspired by the famous fairy tale. Sophie, thanks to the help of Mrs. Gibbons, is able to make it to the Bridgerton masquerade ball and whilst there, draws the attention and murmurs of everyone in the room. Benedict, who was bored and looking for a way out, is led to her by the murmurs and whispers, and they have their magical encounter. It is beautiful, it is magical, it is romantic, until Sophie has to bounce, a la Cinderella style, and Benedict is left to pine. For those who are worried that I spoiled too much, trust me, this all happened in like the first chapter of the book, so you're good. But anyway, if you listen to my narration of the events of the book and the intricacies of Benedict and Sophie's meet cute, I'm sure you figured out what the key difference I'm referring to is. If you haven't, however, it's okay, I will spell it out. There is a slight change in how they met. Now, the thing about books is that we get the chance to hear the characters in a monologue, which helps place us in the headspace of these characters, how they are feeling, what to expect from them, etc. With film or TV, however, it's a bit more different because that platform is more of a visual one. And so when you look at that scene, consider the fact that what draws Benedict's attention to Sophie isn't the murmurs or people looking at her blinded by her presence as we get in the book. Instead, he is drawn to her because her attention is utterly captivated by a thing of beauty, the chandelier. Now, this might seem absurd, and if you're someone who isn't familiar with my content or haven't watched any of my videos, you might be convinced that I'm talking out of my ass, because what has a chandelier got to do with Benedict falling for Sophie and how it is different from how the events played out in the books? Well, you see, it's because I love symbolism and character analysis and how they are used to tell stories within the format of movies and TV shows. The chandelier is a light source, yes, but there is something significant in how that scene is shot. Benedict spots her across the room, is taken in by her beauty, which follows the events of the book. But the show makes the very active choice to take things a bit further. He is further captivated by how enraptured she is in what she is looking at, and so the scene has his eyes pan upwards. He is curious, interested to see what has her staring with such awe. And in looking up, he spots the chandelier. There is that brief moment where it seems like he is slightly taken aback, a bit stunned. Like he had never really noticed that something of such beauty had always been present, hanging over him all this while in his home. That it took someone else appreciating it, looking at it, for him to truly notice. That little scene is narrative shorthand for something that is significant to Benedict Bridgerton's story. Because prior to the start of season 4 and in the midst of everything he had going for him in season 3, Benedict had lost something important and valuable to him: his interest and connection to his art. The writers of the show have made it a core part of his characterization that the one thing that Benedict had always desired, as far as his heart is concerned, is for him to feel like his art has meaning, that his art is something that can evoke emotions in others. To be fair and in his defense, that is something that all artists desire. Benedict is not special in that regard. He's also not special in the fact that at this point of the story, he has been in quite the creative rut and has found no way to get out of it. Enter Sophie Beck, someone who sees beauty in the ordinary, the mundane, the moments that others would seemingly ignore or would not even think to look up at. Because having the chandeliers all lit up and pretty for a ball is something that in their world, the members of the ton, whether they be the young ladies or the gentlemen, would have taken for granted. When you've attended so many balls, things start to blend into each other. You're not taking note of the decor, how things were switched around, unless they are very ostentatious, like the way the Mondriches decorated their home for their first ball, or the release of butterflies at the Featherington ball. If it is simple, it is often overlooked because it is easy to take it for granted. Unless you're someone like Sophie, who, coming from the kind of household she was in, gets to be present in these moments and savor every bit of beauty that she sees. That is what Benedict notices, and that is what he is drawn to, in addition to her beauty. And I think that matters. Because what does a Benedict who has been stuck in a creative rut need in order to rediscover the joy of making art again? He needs a muse. Someone who would get him to look at their world with new eyes and find inspiration where he can get it. And that person is going to be Sophie Beck. That is what I read in that scene. It might seem like a lot to you, but remember, narrative shorthand is a thing often employed in visual mediums, and you might have read that scene as something simple and straight to the point, but I could see it as so much more. And it has me thinking of the possibilities, because what makes a core part of An Offer from a Gentleman is that after Sophie pulls her Cinderella act and disappears, and Benedict runs into a young maid in dire straits, the story shows him constantly conflicted about the similarities between the two women. And I remember reading that part of the book and rolling my eyes at the slight cliche and the convenience of it. But this change with the clip we were shown has me rethinking the story a bit differently. Because what if it's not just she physically looks like the young woman I danced with that night at the Bridgerton ball that has Benedict all tied up in knots? What if it is the moment where he sees the maid staring at something mundane that takes her breath away, in that life is beautiful if you only took the time to truly look at it way? That brings him back to this night and the way Sophie stares at the chandelier and him finding his muse and his salvation in one fell swoop. Even the slight way in which Sophie is isolated in the frame, where it looks like everyone is around her and she's a bit apart from them, glowing and eye-catching yet, but still apart, mirrors the isolation that we've seen Benedict depict slightly sometimes in the company of his family in the last season, where it feels like everyone is moving all around him and he's just there, a bit separate from them, a bit alone. And I love that. Because that shot shows how someone can be othered even whilst being admired and seemingly at the center of the fun, which has always been Benedict's placement within the narrative. That it is yet another bit of storytelling that has me smiling every time I rewatch the clip is not lost on me. I don't know about you, it might just be 68 seconds, but that tiny teaser has me so pumped for Benedict's story because it does feel like the show might approach things a bit differently from the book, which, to be fair and in their defense, they have done for the other couples so far. But if they play this card right and continue to maintain this trend, if I'm not reading too much into the scene and that is actually was being conveyed, then the changes to season 4 might just be my absolute favorite of the lot. Of course, there's also the possibility that I am just overthinking things and talking out of my ass because I watched the clip way too many times as a way to cope with Netflix still sticking to their guns of not giving us the new season until 2026. Which, whatever the case may be, I would love to hear your thoughts, and if you too see what I am seeing with regards to that clip, or you think I should go to bed because my overtired brain is finding connections where they shouldn't be, let me know either way in the comments. But yeah, like this video if you've watched this far and haven't done so yet. Share it if you want. Support me on Patreon if you can. And until tomorrow's video, do remember, obsessing over the things you love, perfectly valid coping mechanism.